Okay, part number 2 in the copyright authorship series. Quick quiz on use with permission for professional writers in the context of writing in copyright imbued environments. I'm going to try to get through this within 10 minutes because that's how long I have to make a single tape on YouTube. So, 2 kinds of use you will make of others' copyrighted protected materials or uses they will make of yours are uses with permission and uses without permission, or authorized and unauthorized. Fair use would be, if you're using under fair use, Section 107 of Title 17 of U.S. copyright law, that means you're using without permission, you're using unauthorized, but it's a legal use as long as you're within fair use. And I'm not going to concentrate on that here, but I'll do that in a different tutorial. But Section 107, notwithstanding the fact that items are copyright protected, including if you make copies of them or use them to criticize, comment, do news reporting, teach, conduct scholarship or research, it's not an infringement of copyright. And the considerations that the court looks at when deciding whether a use is a fair use or not are the purpose and character of the use, including whether you're making money off of it or if it's for nonprofit educational purposes, the nature of the copyrighted work, and the work you're using, if it's creative, it has more copyright protection than if it's factual, the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. So if you're using the entire work, it's not very likely to be fair use. If you're just using a little bit of the work, but it's the most important part of the work, it still could be a copyright infringement. So there's kind of a weighing and balancing on that factor. Number 4, the effective use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. So if someone made, the Flintstones cartoon, and then you saw the cartoon, pretend like this had not already happened, and you decide to make, dolls and action figures that look like Fred Flintstone and his wife Wilma or whatever, and Dino the dinosaur, then the maker of the original cartoon could sue because you've impaired their ability to make profit off the original piece. So that's considered a derivative work. So if someone wrote a novel and then you took the idea of the novel and turned it into a play, that would be potentially copyright infringing, likely copyright infringing. So if there's a potential market for something that somebody's created which is copyright protected, and someone else does something to impair that future market, then that's unlikely to be fair use. The fact that the work is unpublished shall not itself mean that there cannot be a fair use. If you ask a copyright holder for permission to use their material in your own original web composition or text, and they say no, this means you absolutely cannot use the copyright holder's material under fair use. True, false, cat answer. And you can stop this tutorial anytime and reflect on it if you want, so I'm going to go through pretty fast. In the study that I did, out of 340 people, 47 said false and 53% said true, and the best answer is false. Right? So fair use applies when it's an unauthorized use. So if you asked and didn't get permission, that would be when you would want to use. That's when you would want to draw upon Section 107. So if you ask and they say no and you use it anyway, it could be fair use. You could be using under fair use. Fair use applies to unauthorized use. Therefore, if you ask permission and they say no, or even if the copyright holder were to agree to your use but ask an unreasonable price, you could still operate under fair use. See Bill Graham, Archives v. Dorley, Kindersley, 2006, Campbell versus Acuff Rose Music, 1994. Often in the case of parody or satire, a use will not be agreed to by the copyright holder, and so fair use is the only option. Number 2, if you use something with a Creative Commons license, it means you automatically get fair use. True, false, can't answer. Again, Creative Commons means you have permission, right? So why do you need fair use? Fair use is for when you don't have permission. So of 339 people in my study, 68% said false, which was the best answer, and 32% said true. So most of the people got this one right. Fair use under Section 107 applies to unauthorized use. A Creative Commons license provides authorization for use. It provides a license to use. And so using an item under a Creative Commons license means you don't need to worry about fair use because you have a license. Number 3, Mary, a law-abiding citizen, is using a large chunk of text, 1,000 words, in her web page. The sole copyright holder of this text is her friend Tim. Tim's given her express written permission to use this text in her web page. Even so, as a conscientious, law-abiding citizen, Mary should still make sure she is within fair use when using Tim's text in her web page. Okay, remember, fair use is for unauthorized use, but Mary has permission here, so true, false, can't answer. The correct answer is false. Slightly, the majority of people got this one right out of 336 people. 52% said false, 48% said true. The best answer is false. If you have permission, you don't have to worry about fair use. Since Tim gave Mary written permission, he's given her a license to use the text. Since Mary has a license to use it, she does not need to make a fair use determination as long as she uses within whatever terms he may have specified in his written permission. In this case, he gave her permission to use his text in her webpage, and that's what she is doing. 4. Kim, a law-abiding citizen, does a search on the Creative Commons website for an image that allows her to use it as long as she attributes the original author and uses for educational use. Kim decides to use this image for 100% educational use. She clearly and prominently attributes the original author. Nonetheless, as a conscientious, law-abiding citizen, Kim should still carefully make a determination on whether or not she is within fair use. True, false, can't answer. Best answer is false. Slight majority got this one right out of 335 people. Again, the Creative Commons site sets up a licensing scheme. In this particular scenario, the license requires attribution and educational use. As long as Kim uses within the stated license, she doesn't have to make a fair use determination. Fair use applies to unauthorized use. Since Kim has done everything required by the license, the use in this case is authorized, and fair use is thus irrelevant. Next question. Mary, a law-abiding citizen, decides to use 5 pages of a 7-page Ninth Circuit Court decision in her website. She legally obtains this unedited opinion directly from the court's website. She wants to cut and paste all 5 pages directly onto the HTML page she is proposing. She will not edit or comment on the court opinion, nor does her webpage allow commenting by others. Before using the text in her website, as a conscientious, law-abiding person, she should be sure she is within fair use. True, false, can't answer. Most of the people said true, 68%, but the best answer was false, and only 32% got this one right out of 335 people. The federal government documents in the United States generally aren't copyright protected, unlike, say, in Canada, where the Crown owns the government-produced texts, with a lot of exceptions. But I mean, this isn't a monarchy; it's a democracy, so you have to think about things differently. See Section 105, Title 17, and it talks about this, the government exception. The language in question regarding editing or commenting in the question is a red herring that might be relevant if the court opinion was copyright protected because it has to do with the nature of the use. Note that if a court opinion was taken from Westlaw or LexisNexis databases where it may have been edited, enhanced with headnotes or other annotations, summarized, etc., copyright and fair use would certainly be triggered in a different fashion. Copyright would be triggered, and you'd have to think about whether you should use within fair use. Here, because it's not copyright protected, you shouldn't have to worry about fair use. That's the best answer. In this scenario, though, the unedited text that was in the question was taken directly from the governmental website, so Mary should be okay. She shouldn't have to worry about fair use. It's in the public domain. It's in the commons.